Good morning, everyone. Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning,
Please
sir.
come.
Good
All right,
morning.
thank. All right, good morning. Thank you so much for joining in.
Good morning,
Um,
sir.
well, welcome to class. We'll be starting in a minute, but then before we just go ahead and start, please, I would like to kindly encourage you, if you can, and if you're in a location where you can turn on your video, please kindly ensure to do that throughout the class so that we can have somewhat a similitude of an interaction throughout the session. So thank you so much as you comply. All right, good morning. It's already 11 a.m. My name is Dennis Williams, and I'll be your moderator for today's class. We hope to have a very, very interactive session, and not just an interactive session. We hope to hear from our very wonderful mentors who will be here to do justice to today's topic. That is the topic on the AfCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area. Like I earlier said, my name is Dennis Williams, and I will be your moderator for today. So moving on. So firstly, we are still taking the announcements about the Jiipcc Academy Free Legal Clinic for creatives, entertainers, athletes, innovators, and startups. Right? For them, we are giving the opportunity for them to get a 20 minutes consultation slot with our professionals. They can submit their contracts for reviews. That's the link on the flyer there. Right? You can also reach out to me for further details. I would like to encourage everyone on call today to share this information with their families and friends. And so thank you so much as you do that. Moving on, I want to introduce the mentors that we have for today. Today, we're expecting to have three amazing mentors in today's session. First,
the supplier have not been supplied.
Sorry about that noise. Please, if you have your mic unmuted, please, can you kindly try to mute it?
Oh. This guy cannot get anything.
All right, thank you. So like I said, we're expecting three amazing mentors in session today. First of them is Mr. Oluwatosin Olaniran. Sorry, sir, if I didn't pronounce your surname properly. Mr. Oluwatosin is a dedicated advocate for leadership, governance, and public office in Africa. Mr. Oluwatosin is a dedicated advocate for leadership, governance, and public policy in Africa, driven by a passion for excellence, innovation, creativity, and sustainable development across Nigeria and Africa. In pursuit of his commitment to the advancement of law and societal development, Oluwatosin currently serves as an advisory council member of the AfCFTA Youth Advisory Council, contributing to efforts aimed at promoting youth inclusion in the realization of a unified African market through AfCFTA. During his undergraduate days, he held key leadership positions and pioneered impactful initiatives, earning him multiple awards and recognition for his contributions in his leisure time. Oluwatosin enjoys browsing the internet, watching documentaries, and reading success stories from global achievers. Thank you, Mr. Oluwatosin. I can see you're already with us on the call. You're welcome to today's class. Next on our list for today is Mr. Walmart Jones Idikyo. All right, sorry if I didn't get the pronunciation of your name correctly, sir. Mr. Jones is the founder of the AfCFTA Roundtable, a continental think tank of trade policy and investment expertise, interpreting the contents of African continental free trade area agreements to SMEs and providing continental-wide advisory on trade policy implementation. He served as pioneer chairman of the Bielsa Business Roundtable Bayelsa Business Roundtable, an affiliation of the African Business Roundtable, offering access to international organizations and peer reviewing institutions on policy frameworks. Mr. Jones is a member of faculty of the Africa Industrialization Group, a continental group committed to the industrialization of African economics. He serves as the legal advisor of the All African Association of Small and Medium Enterprises, the AAA SME, and also a member of the Multinational Organization Committee on the African Trade and Investment Global Summit, ATIGS 2021, an Africa-centric investments summit holding in Dubai on the sideline of the Dubai Expo. Walmart Jones Idikio has 3 decades post-call experience as a lawyer, providing legal advisory, planning and strategy, business risk analysis, policy framework development, and investments and assets acquisition negotiation in the oil, gas, petrochemical, maritime, marine, aviation, and real estate sectors. Locally and internationally, he serves as the managing counsel of Femi Osinowo and Company, a firm of legal practitioners in Lagos with specialization in marine, maritime, and aviation services. He also serves as a group company secretary of Royal Marine Spa Limited, a marine service company that manage Nigeria's largest strategic offshore petroleum product storage on behalf of the PPMC and NNPC at the time. He has severally been involved in negotiations for the acquisition of offshore vessels, product tankers, and renders associated legal services as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Walmart, for joining us today. We are happy to have you on call. Last but not least, for our mentors today is Mr. Lebosi Nwiabu. Sorry about that. An international trade and investments lawyer, private sector specialist, trade policy advisor, and project manager with considerable experience in the WTO law, regional integration, customs and trade facilitation, investments, agriculture and food security, trade in service, digital and creative economics, and transport policy. He has extensive experience in reviewing domestic trade laws and regulations affecting trade and governance, with an in-depth knowledge of developments and political economics analysis, multilateral disciplines, and gender economic issues. He also has the commitment to drive and support initiatives that can turn around organizations' goals and human capacity in any given environment. His philosophy is to pursue personal and professional development with integrity, without hindering the potential of others. Thank you so much, Mr. Lebosi, for joining us today. I'm not sure if you are yet here on call, but we look forward to having you with us, sir. Thank you so much for joining. So moving on, to start the session properly, I would like to welcome all our 3 mentors to today's class. We expect to have a very, very wonderful interaction with you all. And we also expect to have a wonderful interaction with the mentees on the call. Please, I kindly indulge the mentees to please make this session as interactive as possible. Use the chat box, use your emojis, respond when mentors are speaking, so that we can all together have a very delightful session. So I think I'll be starting with one of our mentors, Mr. Walmart Idikio. To just help give us, his presentation for today. Please, I would like to beg our mentors for today's class. We have 25 minutes for our presentations. 25 minutes. I would like to crave your indulgence for us to stick to time so that we can have the other mentors speak, and also we can get to hear from the mentees, as well as have an extensive period to take questions. So I think we'll be starting, like I said, we'll start with Mr. Walmart. Sir, if you're with us, please, the floor is yours for your introduction into today's topic. You're welcome, sir.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Okay, I put on my video. I'll keep that for the first few minutes, so it doesn't take much bandwidth when I'm doing the presentation. First of all, the name is Warmate Jones Idikio. A brief of my. Okay, I guess you can see me now, right?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yes, see you. Okay. So let me get to the presentation, so I can just be swift enough. Okay, so let me share my slides. Okay, I assume you have my presentation.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so there might be no need for me to share the slides, so I can just be swift.
All right, but I can also share it from my end.
Okay, go ahead and do that, please. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay, so get to the very first slide. Okay, the second one rather, sorry. All right, so, well, yeah, this is it. So my full names are Warmate Jones Idikio. I am the founder of the and chief executive of the AfCFTA Roundtable. And also, I'm now the vice president in charge of legal and compliance at the All Africa Association for Small and Medium Enterprises, ASME. I'm also at the Multi-Door Courthouse as a member. I also state and I also serve as the Director General of the Chamber of Commerce here. Next slide, please, if you can help me quickly. Okay, so the AfCFTA, quickly to that, the objectives of the AfCFTA, it is called the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but it was established via the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. The agreement established Africa as a free trade area, and that's why you can refer to it as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. It was the main objective is to create a single market, you keeping or making Africa one single market for trade in goods and trade in services. And for these two things to happen seamlessly, it means that there must be free movement of persons across Africa. So the AfCFTA seeks to achieve these things to ensure that Africa comes together for the purpose of developing. The idea is to have one integrated single African market where all of its population and members can trade seamlessly in goods, trade seamlessly in services, and have free movement of persons across the entire Africa for the purpose of achieving this. Next slide. Okay, so if you look at that basic thing, you have about 54 countries that have signed on to, as we speak, as at January this year. There are about 54 countries out of the 55 that have signed on to it. The idea is to uplift about 30 million Africans out of poverty. And as at July 1st, you have about 47 members who have signed on to the protocols. And then it will generate about $450 billion, to boost year on year Africa's economy. Next slide. Give me the next slide if you can. Okay, so, all right, so the major idea about this is to move towards having a single African economic community, just as you have the European community. And it is programmed to achieve this by 2063. And within the AU and the African Union, within the African Union arrangement, you have what is called the Agenda 2063, which aims to consolidate Africa as one economic community. And this is if you look at, there are 4 key points about that. To achieve the economic community, one of the first objectives is the integration of African economies. The second is for the development, mobilization, and utilization of the human and material resources of Africa. Now, we all know what happens within the African context, where much of what resources the African continent has is exported to other countries in Europe and the Americas and Asia. And then most of our human resources are also moving out of Africa to find greener pastures elsewhere. So in having one economic community, in boosting our economic base, integrating the African economy, you can achieve development and help to mobilize and utilize human and material resources for Africa by Africans. The third is to raise the standard of living of African people. And the fourth is to harmonize policies among existing and future economic communities in order to foster the gradual establishment of the community. So the idea is to foster one African economic community, and these are the steps that have been signed on to be taken to ensure that this happens. The next slide. Okay, so for under the AfCFTA, and to ensure that all that we've talked about briefly happens, there are key areas of the agreement that needs to be negotiated by all of Africa's, all the state parties. These negotiations mean that, everybody has to be on one page, agree to the same terms and protocols. So the first is into negotiating how laying down ground rules and regulations to foster trade in goods. And the second is to foster trade in services. And then that where there are people trading together, there will always be disputes. How then do we settle disputes amongst African nations that have arisen out of trade? And then beyond that, also, you need to unite the services of the customs, for instance, to ensure that every country, has the same regulation regulating the movement of goods and the movement of services and the movement of people. So this first stage of negotiation has been concluded, but the idea is to enlighten us to know that these are necessary steps to be taken to ensure that people can move seamlessly within and across Africa. Goods and services can move seamlessly. The next slide. Okay, phase 2 negotiations would be about intellectual property rights. If you are in the creative industry or you have some innovative ideas that are out there, is to ensure that nobody trades in, nobody uses your intellectual properties within Africa that has originated from you. So the negotiations will be to set the ground rules and set issues and protocols around intellectual property rights. Again, also to discuss the ground rules for investment. If I am investing across border, what do I need to do? What are the things that I need to be certain of? Again, competition policy. You know that across Africa, if all of Africa is trading using Africa as one single market, there'll be lots of competition. And so it's to ensure that, yes, there'll be healthy competition and not acrimonious competition. Today, we are talking about more about digital trade with all of the platforms that are everywhere. How do we regulate digital trade across Africa? All of those protocols would be negotiated. All the countries would make their input and be on one page going forward. And then what else is required or what more will be needed to boost and encourage women and youth in trade across Africa? This is the phase 2 of negotiations, which I think is ongoing. Next slide. Okay, so we talk about the projected benefits of the AfCFTA. Give me the slide, please.
Sorry, sir, my network is a bit shaky, but I'm doing all I can to bring it back up.
Okay.
Can you see my slides, my screen now,
Okay.
sir?
Okay, I've seen it here. Thank you so very much. All right, so I'm trying to stay within the 20 minutes. So the projected benefits of the agreement are very simple. The target market for the AfCFTA is projected to rise from an estimated 1.2 billion. That is a projection of the current population at the time. And it's to say that by 2030, Africa's population will be 1.7 billion people. And of this 1.7 billion, 600 million people will be in the middle class. What does that portend for Africa? It is the middle class that has the purchasing capacity for services in goods or for purchased goods and services. So it means that with 600 million people in the middle class, actual development through trade can happen. Now, in terms of aggregate gross domestic product of GDP, it is projected to rise from about 2.1 trillion, which was existing at the point in time at about 2018, 2019, to about $3.4 trillion, or about 6.7 trillion if you're calculating on purchasing power parity terms. So the differentiation is $3.4 trillion in GDP or $6.7 trillion if you're calculating based on purchasing power parity. And in terms of investment and consumer spending, the AfCFTA is expected to attract an estimated $4 trillion. But these are estimates at about 2018. Now, given the kinds of changes that are ongoing and the boost in certain economies across Africa, all of these values over time are intended or are hoped would increase beyond what they are. The next slide. Give me the next slide. I'm losing you. Okay, so the next one. All right. So this is a snapshot of Africa's economy. We have no, okay, yeah, this is it. Okay, so at the time, 16 out of 26 countries in the world were of the fastest growing economies in the world are in Africa. Now, Africa's population at that time, we had about 1.03 billion people. 50% of that number were youth. 40% of that number okay, so 50% of 1.03 billion people were youth. And if you look at the right with the yellow tag there, the projection is that by 2100, 40% of the world's population will be Africans. So it is telling you how Africa is expanding. The population is expanding. The number of youth is burgeoning, increasing, and we have the largest and youngest workforce in the world. At that time, it was 122 million people that will be added to the workforce by 2020. This is 2024. So if you're imagining 122 million people that are entering the workforce year on year from 2020 to date, it is massive. The question I'd like to place in the hearts and minds of those of us listening is, do we think that the African economy would be able to cater to this huge number of the workforce that are entering year on year? Leave that at the back of the mind while we go on. Next slide. Okay, so this is basically, again, Africa's economy as it stands. You know, you have three color codes there: the blue, the yellow, or the orange, and the green. They all signify three key areas of Africa's economy. They're either in fuels, or in mining products, or in agricultural products. And the numbers there represent percentages of export volumes of these products. And if you look at it, these are not products that have value added. They are more or less primary commodities. So this is the structure of the African economy. More of primary products are exported out of our individual countries. And if you step at it, each of those bars represent a single country, and the percentages show how much percentage of these products are exported out of Africa. Give me the next slide. Okay, so again, the structural perspective of Africa's economy is like this. You know, the percentage of African countries that are dependent on commodities, 83% of all of African countries are dependent on exporting primary products. And you aggregate that, Africa alone contributes about 45% of all the countries in the world that export primary products. Now, if you look at the designation of UNCTAD, UNCTAD considers that a country that is dependent on commodities, they would be countries that make up more than 60% of its total merchandise export. So if you export more than 60% of your commodities and your merchandise, you're determined to be commodity dependent. So if you look at all of that, it means that Africa is still so much commodity dependent. And that is an area that is critical for Africa's deliberation and consideration going forward for economic development. Next slide. Okay, so I'm showing again intra-African trade, and I'm showing a few different regions within Africa, the ECOWAS, the East and Central Africa, you know, and the South African development countries. So if you look at the movement of trade, you will see that, you know, it is minimum trade within Africa runs between, you know, not more than 15 or 16% between each of those regions. So it only tells you that trade within and amongst African countries is by far less than how much we trade with, you know, the other countries in the world outside of Africa. The next slide. Okay, then again, you know, to buttress that, Africa trade with the rest of the world. If you look at the countries there, China takes the huge chunk of how much trade that we engage in. The US is there, and all other countries are there. None of those countries are basically African countries in the higher margin of it. So that gives us a piece of information as to how we trade with the world and how we trade within ourselves as Africans. Next slide. So the trade flows there, the average of intra-African exports and imports, or what you probably would call intra-African trade, is roughly, or was roughly, 15.2% between 2015 and 2017. To date is about 16%. And the share of exports from Africa to the rest of the world range from between 80 to 90%. So you see the differentials there. So all the more reason why the AfCFTA should be taken seriously to encourage African countries to trade amongst and within themselves going forward. Give me the next slide. So what are the benefits of AfTA? What do we expect? What are the benefits we expect to happen? I've highlighted the keywords in red to boost investment. If individuals, businesses from other countries can move to countries other than their own to trade or to invest, it means that the destination country would have boosted investment flows. And then the next one is well-paying jobs. If there are more investments in a particular country or destination, it means that we will create opportunities for employment for the local population and better, opportunities for increased resources to individuals. And the other is assembly companies. When I am able to move to another country to establish business, and I'm probably in the industrial sector, I can much easily, provide assembly components for industrialization in a new country, which helps also boost the economy of that country. So these are projected benefits. It rests with every single business person and governments of nations in Africa to ensure that the AfCFTA comes to full operation so that these benefits that we have projected can happen. It is in only when these things are established that we can see our youth being employed for the increased values that we provide within our nations. Give me the next slide. Further to a few more of those benefits, we're talking about expanding employment and investment opportunities. Yes, a few more persons investing within Africa, and then it would bridge the manufacturing gap. Why is that so? Because we'll be encouraging more of manufacturing, value added, rather than selling bare primary commodities. We begin to add value. Value addition, it means increased manufacturing opportunities and closing that gap for which we do more of imports than exporting. And then it will also help to advance technology. For if we go into manufacturing is more of tech these days anyway. So it means that we would have to adopt more of technology to increase our manufacturing of resources. And that will add to advancing technology. And then it will also help in fostering specialization and accelerating industrialization, which keys into advancement in tech, investment opportunities, and the manufacturing gaps we're talking about. Give me the next slide. So, are states parties responsible? We're talking about integrating African economies, and that would involve free movement of persons. So to achieve this, in the first phase, every African nation also signed up to establish this. So first things first, the right of entry and the abolition of visa requirements would be critical. If I need to move from where I am to the next African country, and I need to do that within the framework of the AfCFTA, it means that African countries must come to terms to ensure the right of entry of every single African, and then also abolish visa requirements to provide free entry, but of course with minimum restrictions and also certain kinds of regulations that are, agreeable to all. And then again, they must establish the right of residence. I need to be able to reside in another country to do business there, and then to also add to the development of that country. And in the third phase, the right of establishment, the right to establish a business. All of these are involved in the protocol of free movement, and the state parties would deliberate amongst themselves to ensure that the right protocols are evolved for all of these to happen. Give me the next slide. Okay, so what are the enablers, the internal processes that must be achieved to ensure that this happens? If you're talking about trade, they must talk about certificates of origin. If you're talking about trade, you will talk about rules of origin. If I am exporting my goods to another country, I need to show, for instance, that it is from this country. Under the protocols, for instance, every nation would come to an agreement to reduce tariff or to eliminate tariffs. Tariffs are the duties you pay for exporting goods, right? And so countries must eliminate in the first phase 90% tariffs in 90% of their export products, and then progressively eliminate another 7%. So if I am exporting from Nigeria, which has eliminated tariffs, it means that I can export free of tariff, free of charge. Now, if I'm exporting free of charge and I'm saying that the goods I'm exporting are from Nigeria, there needs to be certification of the fact that the goods are from Nigeria, or they were wholly manufactured in Nigeria, or they were partly manufactured in Nigeria. There are substantial, value addition or creation within Nigeria. But the same thing applies to every other country in the world, in Africa, for instance, that would be establishing business under the AfCFTA. So I've set out a few things there. But again, the core concern, which should be an enabler in this instance, is that countries are saying, for instance, that if I eliminate tariffs, then revenues from export, are diminished. So how do countries make up for the lost revenue from export? So if you look at somewhere along there, you see the AfCFTA Adjustment Fund, which is an agreement, for instance, to say that, countries would not lose revenues anymore, but will find ways to ensure that we can, help them to sort that out. Give me the next slide. Okay, so if we're exporting, these are the mediums to export, either by air freight, or by sea. Next slide. But because of the difficulty in achieving that within Africa, this is what we do. We go by cross-border trade, across border by road. And of course, these shows the challenges that every exporter would face if they're doing cross-border trade. Give me the next slide. So again, because of the failed process of achieving the AfCFTA from when it was established to date, the seeming slow pace in achieving that, the AfCFTA came up with what they call the Guided Trade Initiative, which is more like trying to jumpstart trade within Africa. And countries would sign up to this if they satisfy certain requirements. I think you can read through that to get that. But under the guided trade initiative, a few products were certified and cleared under the protocols for people to actually deal with. So those products are there. So you can see that through highlighted in red. So give me the next slide. So what are the objectives of the GTI? Essentially to test the operational, institutional, legal, and trade policy environment under the AfCFTA, to test the readiness of the private sector to participate in trade under the AfCFTA, and to identify possible future interventions to increase intra-African trade and to maximize the benefits of the AfCFTA. This is very important. So have this at the back of your mind. The next slide. So these are the minimum requirements for trade under the AfCFTA. If you look at that, there is a national committee on the AfCFTA, which each nation must have. And I think virtually all the countries have this committee anyway. And then they must support business-to-business connections and all of that. So, you can see that quite easily. Give me the next slide. So, at the first launch of the guided trade initiative in 2022, we have several number of countries that signed up to that, and 96 products were cleared to be traded under the rules of origin. As we speak, about 38 state parties are already registered to participate in the phase 2, and that includes our country, Nigeria. All of those countries are part of the guided trade initiative. The next slide. So these are the requirements for participating under the guided trade initiative. There are certain things that, there are certain things that the customs must be aware of. There are certain things that the authorities must provide for every other country participating in trade to be aware of. So it's very key. These requirements are very key, especially also ensuring that countries notify the Secretariat of non-tariff measures taken to ensure that anything that is a barrier to trade within Africa is removed. Next slide. So these are the options. I just took a few of these out of the 96 products that have been cleared for the guided trade initiative. And my advice to small business to focus especially on any of these items that have been cleared for trade, so that you can seamlessly plug into tariff-less trade within Africa quite easily. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so these are the opportunities that are available under the guided trade initiative. I've mentioned a few of them under that list, but it involves a few of those things. The idea being that, in Nigeria, there are certain countries that we have preferential trade, or not preferential in terms of what we prefer, but trade has been going on with these countries more than a few of the other countries. So if you see Cameroon and you see Ghana, it means that there's so much more trade within Nigeria and these countries. And it's also an indication for small businesses to adopt. Next slide. Okay, so So if you look at this is the face of the SMEs, isn't it? If we mention SMEs, these are a few of the things that come to mind and a few of the things that we see out there. The idea is, how do we, help the transitioning, the scaling of these businesses from where they are to where they can be, in our expectations. The next one. All right, so we're advocating that businesses should now be more of value addition and value chain, meaning instead of exporting primary commodities, you ensure within your system to provide value, added value to each of that. So this is like just like an indication of how value addition takes place. So instead of selling palm oil or palm kernel or the palm by itself, we can have the products that come from there and export them individually, also creating jobs at home and having more products to export. That's the idea about value chain. Next slide. All right, so we know we are no more in commodity economy. We are more or less now in the knowledge economy, where information is out there. Innovation, it is innovation driven by technology and all of that. So our SMEs, our business people, must begin to key in to the knowledge economy to be able to compete effectively out there. The next slide. All right, so I'm just saying this, if we need to, businesses must begin to understand what is called procurement, and procurement is very key to business. We must understand all of these aspects to be able to succeed in our businesses. It's very, very, very important for that to happen. You must learn all of these key areas as businesses to help you become competitive globally. Next slide. All right, so we're saying that if you must compete outside of your local environment, you must begin to think about branding. You must learn to brand your products, brand your business. And in branding, you must think about value. You must think about issue of trust. You must do a lot more of marketing. You must have a logo, something that gets people back to you. You must begin to think of new designs, designing your business, designing your structure. And key in all of this is strategy. You must have this in your mind when you think of running and pursuing your business outside of your local environment. Next slide. I'm almost done. All right. So in the expanded potentials for SMEs, that, it is not just commodities alone. There's a primary, and then, you go all the hog through the marketing stages, the value-added stages, and all of that until consumption. But in today's economy, there's also the recycling, which is the circular economy. So recycling is also now a key part in business. Okay, so recycling is key. Then the next slide. All right, so what steps need to be taken by government? Government must begin to help synergize national and sub-national governments on issues of adopting the AfCFTA protocols and policy. State governments also must be aware of the AfCFTA and ensure that they align their domestic trade policies with what is happening at the national levels. They must begin to help remove barriers to trade by providing incentives, if it's possible, to people who are into business. They must help prioritize manufacturing and also prioritize trade. This is key. Next slide. So what are the opportunities for SMEs? It provides market access. You can now access other markets outside of your local environment. You're trading under an environment of reduced cost because tariffs have been removed. You're moving into a new environment where there's competitiveness. So it helps you also improve the quality of your goods because you'll be meeting all other persons in the same single market. So it helps our business, to improve themselves as well. The next slide. So state governments, which I call subnational governments, should also, do this. It provides opportunity. It should provide opportunity for pooling of resources, where you have state governments side by side that have the same resources, the same potential. They should be able to pool resources to ensure that businesses can locate around them for the benefit of trade. It should provide opportunity for industrialization. State governments must begin to provide access to industry. Yes, and then all of that, yeah. So there are 4 key areas I've noted there for state governments or subnational governments to help in achieving. The next slide. Oh, take it to the next one, sorry. All right, so these are my quick details on Twitter, my email address, my phone number, and on LinkedIn. So you can, if you wish, you can access individually, and then we can take it from this point on. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jones, for that wonderful and very, very interesting presentation from you. It was really, really nice hearing from you. Though I noticed you had to rush through. Your slides were quite were a little bit plenty. But we'll do well to send the slides to the mentees so that they can go through it and they can also get to read those things that you've highlighted for themselves and gain more knowledge as to some of the things that you have said in class. We are really, truly grateful. So thank you so much. So moving on to our next mentor, please, while we are having our next mentor, I would like to ask for the presenter for Group 3, that is IP Group 3. Please also get ready for your presentation. Immediately, Mr. Oluwatosin is done with his presentation. So Mr. Oluwatosin, thank you so much once again for joining us. We also want to hear from your end based off of what you have for us in class today in the next 20 minutes. And then we'll take presentation from the mentees, and then we'll take feedbacks, and then we'll just take questions and round up the session. Mr. Oluwatosin, are you with us?
Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Oluwatosin. It's nice having you with us.
Thank you so much, sir. Good morning, everyone, and good morning to our distinguished mentors for today. It's such a great privilege. It's such a great privilege sharing the stage with my amazing leaders in this area and field. And I want to extend my sincere appreciation to Jiipcc Academy for this invitation. So straight to the business for the day. Please, can I have the slide presentation on the PowerPoint presentation? My sincere apologies. Permit me to just be behind the camera. I'm having issues with the lightning here.
Sir, can you see my screen?
All right, please, can you? Okay. All right, we'll be discussing about the opportunities open to undergraduate and graduate under the AfCFTA, unlocking Africa's potential. So the next slide. All right, our distinguished mentor earlier on has gave us an overview about the AfCFTA, and I think I will just run through why it is important for you. So my major focus today will center around youth participation in AfCFTA. As said in my profile, I'm the advisory council member at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Youth Council. And majorly our focus is about the participation of youth, engaging youth in policy and discussion focus as it relates to AfCFTA. So why is it important for youth? Now, with the potential to integrate Africa's 1.3 billion people and growing economy, the AfCFTA offers immense opportunities to youth. And it's important to note that the largest workforce in the world today is dominant in Africa. So that is why the youth in Africa, the African youth of today, must actively participate in the development and growth of AfCFTA, because it is ideal and it is important that we are not left behind in this transformation. Next slide. So our focus today will be divided into youth participation, like I said, and that is for undergraduates and the graduates. So how can we garner efforts from both the undergraduates and the graduates at the graduate level to ensure maximum participation in AfCFTA? So today we'll be looking at the opportunities for undergraduate, and the first one is entrepreneurship and startups. Entrepreneurship and startups. Like I said earlier, the largest workforce in the world is resident in Africa, and we have so many, like plethora of startups and entrepreneurs in Africa. So these AfCFTA will provide access to a larger market for aspiring entrepreneurs. Like while we're on campus, even outside campus, you have notable examples of entrepreneurs who have made their footprints in different areas. So when it comes to entrepreneurship and startups for undergraduates, the AfCFTA will offer support for cross-border startups in sectors like tech, agriculture, and e-commerce. Now there is this growing awareness for tech there. You know, Techsys, Tech Bro. Now, when we synergize efforts in relation to tech, agriculture, and e-commerce, then these AfCFTA that we are speaking about today will give you access on the cross-border platforms to promote your startups. The next point is internship and apprenticeship. Internship is something very important. It gives you an open access to experience the working environment, the work, the demands of the work. So AfCFTA related programs and partnership with firms engaging in cross-border trade. There are so many organizations, there are so many corporations, firms today that offers internship opportunities in respect of trade, different things. So you can, as an undergraduate, you can explore that area, you can participate, you can make yourself available, open to this opportunity, source to broaden your knowledge about AfCFTA. And there are internships also in industries such as logistics, trade facilitation, and policy implementations. Like there is this platform, Scholarship Region. There are so many opportunities that are available on this platform. There are so many of them. We have opportunities for Africa. These are some of the platforms that you should get connected to, so you can tap into the available opportunities in respect of internship and apprenticeship, because internship will give you a leverage. If you really want to focus on trade, if you really want to build a career for yourself, if you want to build a brand, even if you are into startups, if you want to build a brand for yourself and for your startup, there is a need for you to undergo internship and apprenticeship. It is very important. No one is an island of knowledge, and you don't just start out of the blue. You have to start from somewhere. You have to learn, because learning is a key process. It is fundamental to our growth. Another point is educational and skills development programs. I'm sorry I had to rush through for the sake of time. So the next point is educational and skills development programs. There are so many scholarships and educational programs designed for youth interested in trade, economic integration, and policy. So there are so many educational programs available. Like I mentioned, if you go through the website of the Opportunities for Africa, the Scholarship Region, there are so many available opportunities in education that can promote your interest in trade, economic integration, and policy. And I think we must equally appreciate the Young African Leaders Initiative, YALI. These are some of the areas that you can begin to integrate into the culture of people, so you can understand their culture. That will better help you to establish a successful cross-border trade. Our next point is access to African Union initiatives focused on empowering young leaders in trade-related fields. There are so many initiatives open to youth, organized by the African Union. If you go online, search for those opportunities, you will see them, you will find them, and you will enjoy them truly. So let's have the next slide. All right, so now it's opportunities for graduates. Opportunities for graduates. Now, the first opportunity for graduates is employment in trade-related sectors. Employment in trade-related sectors. So there is an increased demand for legal experts, economists, and trade specialists in areas like custom, trade, compliance, and logistics. So there is an increased demand for legal experts, for economists and trade specialists in areas like customs, trade, compliance, and logistics. So if you have undergone a series of internship and apprenticeship, then you must have been able to garner enough experience and knowledge. Then you can put these things into bear by offering your services to companies, to institutions, and to different organizations. In the legal sphere, we have the compliance officer. So there are so many startups, there are so many entrepreneurship sectors out there that needs compliance officer to guide them on some trade-related matters. Oh, there will certainly be a need for what? Custom-related affairs. Okay, we have to get this permission, we have to get this permit, you have to get this several of those things. So if you have gathered enough experience, undergone different series of studies, then you can certainly gain gainful employment in trade-related sectors. And also you get an advantage role in Africa's in AfCFTA's administrative bodies, policy think tanks, and trade-related NGOs. Like Mr. Wormit Jones stated, I think he is the founder and chief executive officer of AfCFTA think tank. So now, having participated in this mentorship meeting today, you have undergone several internship experience, AfCFTA in a broader view, and you have gained larger perspectives. You can apply. You can write to his email address available. You can apply. You can write to him. Okay, you want to be a member. You want to take certain roles. Now, currently, where I'm serving as the advisory council member of the African Continental Youth Advisory Council, there was a window opportunity available to African youth, and I made my application. I was interviewed. So this is how you can gain you can become a voice. You can become a brand advocating for the AfCFTA in your respective spaces. The next point is cross-border professional services. So there are opportunities in sectors like law, accounting, and consultancy as the movement of professional services across cross-border becomes easier. There is equally another demand for professionals as it relates to AfCFTA. They need professionals. They need professionals even at the African Union level down to the list. Professionals are required so they can engage them, they can put them on the right perspective, they can strengthen the ongoing effort for AfCFTA. Another point is investment and trade facilitation. Investment and trade facilitation. Graduates in finance, economics, or business can explore roles in investment promotion agencies, facilitating cross-border trade and investment. And I want to believe you are aware that we have the coordinating office for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We have the coordinating office headed by Mr. Shegun Awolowo. So that you can participate in this. You can explore investment promotion agency. We have the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission. So you can engage in all these areas. You can offer support. They are available. You can make research online. Everything is global. Everything is digital now. Make efforts. Another point is digital and technology solutions. So tech graduates can take advantage of growing needs for digital platforms to support e-commerce, digital payments, and supply chain management under the AfCFTA. You know, one thing that we are advocating for under the African level, the African Union level, is that we want to have a single market based on the AfCFTA, and we want to possibly have like a single currency, just like the ongoing discussion at the ECOWAS level. We want to have a single currency. Now, we should encourage digital payments. As graduates, you can build efforts advocating for AfCFTA if you can come up with a digital payment platform or supply chain management under the AfCFTA. Okay, people want to trade, but people are not aware. Okay, this is how they want to go about it. Okay, there is this language barrier. How can you come in and break that language barrier? How can you make it accessible and seamless for traders to trade seamlessly and effectively? So that is why youth graduates must come up with ideas. So we must be innovative at this point. If we really want to be the needed change in Africa, if we really want to be the next African champions, we must come up with initiatives, we must come up with solutions. And these things are available and in our hands, and we must make effort to drive that change. So digital and technology solution is one of the major focus that I want us to highlight today. We must take advantage of digital platform to support e-commerce, digital payment, and supply chain management under the AfCFTA. So the next slide, please. All right. So we have the AfCFTA sectors for youth engagements, and I would not want to dwell much about these because Mr. Walmart Jones stated a lot about this. Next slide. So when we're talking about the AfCFTA youth engagement sectors, there are so many sectors available under the AfCFTA, but there are three predominant sectors that youth must actively participate in, and that is the agriculture and agribusiness. The agriculture and agribusiness. So the AfCFTA opens door for agribusiness startups to trade agricultural products across African borders with a focus on food security and sustainability. And you will agree with me today that one of the challenges facing African countries today is food security and sustainability. Food security and sustainability. We are okay. We just say, okay, Ghana is producing this crop. Uganda is producing this. We have this in Nigeria, but we are unable to market because Ghana is in need of this, but we are unable to transport or trade with them with this particular product. Now, youth must come up with ideas, with innovations in respect of agriculture and agribusiness. You know, now it's two things now: agriculture, agribusiness. Agribusiness is the business aspect of agriculture, and that is why youth must come up, because the AfCFTA has opened a larger door for agribusiness startups to trade agricultural products across African borders with a focus on food security and sustainability. Mr. Jones has stated some of these areas, some of this aspect that the government must key into to facilitate seamless trade amongst country, cross-border trade amongst country. So another point is the manufacturing and industrialization. Manufacturing and industrialization. So there are so many opportunities for innovation in manufacturing, particularly in consumer goods, textiles, and raw material processing, aimed at reducing import dependency. Aimed at reducing import dependency. You will agree with me that like 80% of African countries today are import dependent. Yes, we are dependent on foreign-made goods. However, we have some of these raw materials, we have some of these goods, some of these raw materials available in our country. So the AfCFTA has offered a larger platforms. You know, it's growing. The AfCFTA is growing. There's much advocacy, ongoing effort towards it. But in our individual and respective spaces rather, we must come up with ideas and innovation in the manufacturing, and this particularly in consumer goods, textiles, and raw material processing, aimed at reducing import dependency. In Nigeria today, our government is advocating for locally made goods. Locally made goods. Locally made goods. There are so many different ministries, departments, and agencies advocating for locally made goods. However, that idea has not seen the light of the day due to several issues and largely dependent on corruption. But the youth are still the hope of the country. So if we can galvanize effort within ourselves and come up, okay, let's all equally encourage locally made goods. Let's encourage and reduce import dependency. And once we have those products processed, refined in Nigeria, in our country, we can have them distributed to our member states in the African region. You can have it. Gradually, we are building the largest continental trade in the world. Next slide. Transportation and logistics. Transportation and logistics. So development of logistics services to support cross-border trade, providing roles for graduates in supply chain management and transportation infrastructure. You know, there is this you will have if you want to import goods from China, you have someone in China picking up the items for you there, then have it shipped down to your country. We can equally have similar thing here within Africa, that providing an effective supply chain management and transportation infrastructures. The youth must galvanize effort towards this. The youth must participate in this. Okay, there is a particular product in Ghana, and you want to boost its sales in Nigeria because it's beneficial to everyone. You can have an agent over there facilitate a seamless supply chain, have that product transported to Nigeria, and distribute it and have it on sale to end users, just like we have between the Europeans. What is really existing in other advanced countries? We can implement this in our own country, thereby boosting the advocacy for what? The expansion of the largest continental trade in the world. Next slide. All right. So like I said, today is just about youth. My presentation is about youth participation in AfCFTA. Now, we want to have some case studies of youth success under AfCFTA. There's so many persons, organizations, startups that has contributed towards AfCFTA since its inauguration. An example of a young lawyer or trade consultant who has found opportunities in advising companies on compliance with AfCFTA regulations is Mr. Legbosi Nwaibu, who is a trade law expert under the AfCFTA. So we can see that youth are coming up. Youth are coming up. That is an example of a young lawyer or a trade consultant. You know, I said compliance officer is very important when you are setting up a startup company. You are coming up with any entrepreneurial trade or aspect. You need a compliance officer that will guide you. Okay, these are the permits that you will need. These are the processes that you need. This is how to incorporate. This is how to go about it. So, an example of a tech company that has expanded its operation across multiple African countries under the AfCFTA, we have a plethora of tech companies that have expanded operations across multiple African countries under the African Continental Free Trade Area, and that is what we have. The Vigor. Vigor is an example of a tech company that has expanded its African operations. So you can come up with a similar initiative too. You can come up with a tech company that will equally expand beyond the existing scope that we have now. Also, an example of a youth-led agribusiness that leverage on AfCFTA to access new market across Africa is the Tanzania's Agri-Hub Market Network. The Tanzania's Agri-Hub Network. This is one of the foremost and recognized Agri-Hub network in Africa. So it consists of large numbers of youth in Tanzania. They have teamed up together and they have worked on the business aspect of agriculture, and they have expanded their scope under the platform and umbrella of AfCFTA. Next slide, please. Now, we can't consider the opportunities alone without looking at the challenges facing youth under the AfCFTA. The first challenges facing youth is the lack of awareness and knowledge. Lack of awareness and knowledge. So many undergraduates and graduates are unaware of AfCFTA's opportunities or how to take advantage of them. And that is why you must appreciate the organizers of this event or of this mentorship session for these live
Please, am I the only one that can't hear Mr. Luatos?
Yeah.
No, we are not the only ones.
Hello?
Mr. Luatos, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you, sir.
Yeah, all right. We were not hearing you for a moment, but please, you can go ahead.
Okay. All right. I think you are stating about the agriculture, the sectors under the AfCFTA for youth.
Yes, we just lost you when you started talking about the challenges.
Okay. All right, let me do a brief recap about that. So I said one of the challenges facing the youth under the AfCFTA is lack of awareness and knowledge. Lack of awareness and knowledge. So many undergraduates and graduates are unaware of AfCFTA's opportunities or how to take advantage of them. And that is why you must appreciate the organizers of this mentorship session for giving you an insight into AfCFTA and its opportunities. With, we have amazing mentors here today, and you trust me, you must have learned a lot from this session. Another challenge facing youth under the AfCFTA is access to capital. We have so many resourceful youth who are willing and able to engage thoroughly in promoting AfCFTA, either through their startups, through their entrepreneurship strengths and everything, but they don't have access to capital. They don't have access to funding and capital to start their businesses or invest in cross-border ventures. Another point is regulatory and bureaucratic barriers. And despite the AfCFTA framework, there are still regulatory hurdles that could limit ease of doing business. Just like Mr. Warmick Jones stated, you have to do this. There's no free movement of trade, free movement. You have to get this permit, residency permit in different countries. So this bureaucratic process has what hindered the ease of doing business amongst African countries and amongst African youth, rather. So next slide, sir. So I'll just go through recommendations for undergraduate and graduates when it comes to promoting or engaging thoroughly in the African Continental Free Trade area. So leverage educational platforms. So undergraduates, while still in school, you must leverage on taking online courses or participate in webinars related to trade, African economies, and AfCFTA. There are so many webinars, conferences, seminars outside there that relate to trade, African economies, and the topic of today, which is the African Continental Free Trade area. So you can engage in all these discussions to broaden your knowledge. Also, join AfCFTA focused student associations. So join student organizations that focuses on AfCFTA and trade, offering networking and learning opportunities. Trust me, there are so many of them available. Like I said, you can go through the opportunities for African website, the scholarship region, so many of them on Twitter, on the X handle. So many of them that you can tap into some of these available opportunities. And also start small business with cross-border potential. Now you really want to build a large network. You must have this mindset that this business you're starting with has cross-border potential. Don't limit yourself to your state alone. Don't limit yourself. Let me start this way. Don't limit yourself to your locality. Don't limit yourself to your state. Don't limit yourself to Nigeria alone. Without your small business, in view, have a long-term goal that this business I'm starting now has a cross-border potential. So explore business ideas that could serve multiple African markets. Like I said, explore small business ideas that could serve multiple African markets, such as digital products or services. So next slide, let's look at the recommendations for graduates under the AfCFTA. So graduates must focus on skills development in trade-related fields. You must pursue certifications in international trade law, cross-border logistics, or trade finance to stay competitive. The African Union has a platform for online courses, so you can engage on their website. There are so many courses available on trade, on the African economies that you can engage. You can get some certifications. We have so many websites available, platforms online available that you can register. Then you start taking some of these courses. So also engage in policy discussions. So graduates must actively participate in AfCFTA related forums and policy dialogues to stay updated and influence future trade frameworks. Like the African Continental Youth Advisory Council, we have different forums and discussions, and you can check through and see any future events that you can participate in, and you can start building interest towards those areas. So collaborate across borders, network with professionals from other African countries to build cross-border partnership, particularly in professional services like consulting or law. So when you attend some of those programs, conferences, join some of those associations or communities, there's a need for you to network with other people from other countries, not just in Nigeria alone. Network with people from Ghana, from Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia. Build a relationship with them and start growing, start networking with them to build a better potential. Also, seek funding and support programs. Trust me, there are so many funding and support programs available for youth in respect of AfCFTA. There are so many grants, government-backed financing programs, and youth enterprise schemes that facilitate cross-border trade. As of this year, we had a program in Tanzania on African continental free trade area, and youth attended, participated fully in some of this discussion, and some of them were given grants by their members, by their countries to represent them at some of this conference. So you can also participate, make yourself available, make yourself known, and start building a brand under the AfCFTA. Next slide. All right, so in conclusion, we must remember that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement as a youth empowerment tool. So the AfCFTA represents a transformative opportunity for African youth with the potential to drive economic growth and innovation. Also, with strategic engagements, undergraduates and graduates can become pivotal players in reshaping Africa's trade landscape. Like I said, the largest and the most efficient workforce in the world today is resident in Africa. So that's why we must team up, we must become pivotal players in reshaping Africa's trade landscape, because the incoming generation will ask from us now that what have we done in respect of expanding trade across African countries. Next slide. All right, so before I end my presentation, I just want us to have a look at the young people. Young people play an important role in Africa's political economy and the success of many continental efforts, such as the AfCFTA, will be determined in large part by how well the youth are included into the various stages of implementation. So youth cannot be included in the various stages of implementation if we are not active. So we must actively participate in AfCFTA so we can be included in its ongoing implementations across different levels and stratas of government. We must become active, we must become known, we must raise the voice, we must raise the banner high so we can be involved in the ongoing stages of implementation. So this is a call to action for everyone here at this event. For undergraduates, start learning. There is no end to learning. Start learning, start building networks and engaging with trade-focused organizations. Start building, start making yourself available, start making yourself open to mentorship. Like you must be mentored. You must be open to what? Mentorship. Get mentored, engage in trade-focused organization. And why for the graduates here in our midst, equip yourself with the skills, knowledge, and resources needed to thrive in a pan-African market. You see a friend of yours coming up with a particular startup, don't discourage them, encourage them. Well, fine, we understand what is available, what's prevalent in our country today. Okay, the government are not willing, stakeholders are not willing to support. But within our little space, we can do something. We can come up with something. So don't discourage anyone. Equip yourself and others with the skills and knowledge and resources needed to thrive in a pan-African market. And lastly, I want to admonish everyone. Like I said, there are so many opportunities available online. Please take advantage of some of these opportunities. Go through their websites, make research, get mentored. Let's have youth. Let's have youth available in all these areas. Like currently now with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement Youth Advisory Council, we have about 45 or 46 membership from different 46 countries in Africa. We have members in 46 African countries. Let's raise the awareness. Let's become a voice and let's make ourselves known. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a great honor and privilege. I will make my contact information available for those who intend to reach out. So thank you for the honor to light up Africa. Together we can build the Africa of our dreams. Thank you so much, Jiipcc Academy.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Oluwatosin, for that wonderful presentation from your end. We are very, very happy to hear from you. Such encouraging words from your end. Thank you so much, sir. All right. I'm sure our mentees are getting the hang of why we had to take today's topic on the AfCFTA. I know prior to now you may have been asking yourself, okay, what is the AfCFTA? Why are we making this discussion? How does it concern me? Right. But now you are saying that, there's actually a role you have to play, right, in ensuring that not just trades, we can ensure for more feasible trades within Africa, within our country, and also within other African countries, right? We can have seamless processes. We can encourage startups, right? You can grow your business beyond where it is right now, because I know we may have some entrepreneurs within this space. You can grow your business to now begin to reach and touch other African countries. Please take the advice, look into the markets, broaden your horizon, look out for opportunities to leverage on what the AfCFTA is trying to provide in terms of a unified African network that doesn't just touch on trade within a particular country, but trade within African network. I remember billionaire Dangote, Nigeria billionaire Dangote said that, it is easier to travel from France to Nigeria or any other African country than to travel from Nigeria to other African countries. You can imagine the situations that surround visa restrictions and some of the other issues we have around cross-border movements within Africa, right? But the AfCFTA is already putting in the effort, taking out the time to make what we have in terms of African trade to become more strengthened, where we can now depend on other African countries than having to outsource for materials and trades outside the shore of Africa. So thank you so much to Mr. Oluwatosin, and also thank you to Mr. Warmate in absence. He had to leave, right? But then we'll be taking presentations from the mentees. I hope the group presenter for Group 3 is available in class for presentation. We already have some questions on the chat box. We'll be taking them after presentations are done and feedback, so that we can prepare, right, for the next session. We have today's, I want you to just talk in, today is going to be very interesting. I promise you, this is just the start, right? We have so much prepared or lined up for you in the sessions that will be subsequently coming after this. So please, I want to encourage you all to talk in, sit tight, and then just wait for what we have for you. So group presenter for today's class, we're only having one group present today for the AfCFTA class. Please, you can kindly unmute your mic and start your presentation. Do we have the presenter in class? Okay, thank you, Mr. Oluwatosin. He just dropped his contacts, his LinkedIn address, and his email, also his WhatsApp line. If you want to reach out to him, you can kindly do that, so that you can make further connections, take advantage of some of the things that he has said. Right. So please, do we have the group presenter in class? Please, we want to have presentations. Group 3 IP, right? Where is your presenter? Do we have our presenter in class? Please, we don't want to waste any time. All right, please, I want to encourage you all. Do we have those from group 3 in session? Right, please, we don't want to waste time. Please, can we have presentation right about now? Okay, while they are trying to sort out themselves, please would just go ahead and move to questions. I don't want us to waste any time. All right, I don't want us to waste any time waiting for presentations if there are none. So moving on. Okay, I can see some questions here. Saying that Mr. Warmate is not with us, right? We'll just be having Mr. Oluwatosin help us run through the questions, and we hope that he's able to give answers to the questions. And also, if you have live questions, please, we'll also like to take them, right? So, starting, okay, let me try to scroll back. All right, I think the first question here we have from Imao Bong, right? Mr. Oluwatosin, are you still with us?
Yes, sir, we see, sir.
All right, so we'll be taking questions now. So the first question here is, good morning, sir. Considering the projected increase in industrialization in African states as a result of the AfCFTA implementation, how would you how would how would AfCFTA avoid substantially attributing to general environmental pollution while exercising those higher level of industrialization? Did you get the question?
All right, can you come again, sir?
All right. The question is, all right, you can go ahead and ask.
Yeah.
Malbon.
So I was just, good morning, sir. Thank you for your presentation. I was just asking, considering that Mr. Warmate had said during his presentation that the free continental trade intends to increase levels of industrialization in African consequence of higher levels. Since this continental free trade area intends to develop industrialization in African states, how do we avoid attributing to environmental pollution, even though we want to increase industrialization?
All right, thank you so much for that question. And I think one thing that we must look at when it comes to the call for industrialization is the need for policy advocacy and also for regulatory frameworks. And let me just focus on Nigeria as a piece now. In Nigeria, when it comes to industrialization or when you are starting up an industry that will possibly affect the health of people around you, there is a need for you to conduct an environmental impact assessment. So you must conduct an environmental impact assessment to determine the extent or the level of impact, health impact, environmental impact it will have on other people. So the African Continental Free Trade Agreement or area specifically has imbibed into its framework the need for environmental impact assessment. So while we are calling for the need for industrialization, there's a need for those industries to comply with the rules and regulations under the AfCFTA that provides that irrespective of the fact that we want to encourage industrialization, we want to encourage globalization, we want to encourage marketing of items or products, you must also bear in mind the health and risk factor open to people outside your industry or within your industry. See, there's some demands. Though, like I said, there is a need for ongoing advocacy. Just like we have in Nigeria today, that different companies are coming up, engaging in different activities that have serious or hazardous impact to the people, and due to corruption or ineptitude by those regulatory frameworks or agencies, they don't really come to their effectiveness. So regardless of this, we know corruption is a canker word that's eating deeply to our fabrics here in Nigeria and in some other African countries. But nonetheless, we must also raise that advocacy. That's why we are encouraging you today to equally raise that advocacy, to become a voice known that okay, despite the fact that we are encouraging industrialization, please let us also prioritize safety, avoid environmental pollution, and ensure the overall well-being of people who might even be the end users or consumers of these products or services. I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Oluwatosin, for helping us with that question. We have a few other questions here. I also want to like to encourage our mentees to ask live questions so that we have somewhat a bit of an interactive question and answer session. So the second question here is how does AfCFTA affects digital trade between Nigeria and other African nations?
Okay, am I to take the answer for this?
Yes, your only mentor on the call, Mr. Warmates, is not with us anymore.
Okay. Can you come again with the question?
The question is, how does the AfCFTA affect digital trade between Nigeria and other African nations?
Okay. All right. Basically, when it comes to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement or area, like I said, one thing that is very important is that we are gradually moving, or if not that we have moved into the era of digitalization. In fact, everything is now digital, and there is a need for us to equally encourage digitalization amongst African countries. Even here in Nigeria, okay, want to encourage digital trade in Nigeria and other African countries, then that means if Nigeria is up to date when it comes to the digital aspect of trade, other countries must equally be up to date. That is, both countries must be on par when it comes to digital trade. So we cannot just be trading digitally here in Nigeria and the recipient or the receiving the end country would are not even up to date with us. Take for instance now, okay, take for instance, let me just give like an example. Like, okay, Nigeria is currently working on version 13, like a version 13 of their digital trade. I'm just giving an illustration. We're currently working with version 13, and the other African country that we are trading with is working on version 5. Now you see that there is going to be a large a large dropout when it comes to our trade and our negotiations ability when it comes to those traders. So I believe if we really want to ensure digital trade in Nigeria and other countries, we must ensure that we are equally at the same level, or if not at the same level, we are almost at the same level with the other existing African countries that we want to trade in. But basically, what we have today is a digital trade. And this digital trade cannot exist without an efficient supply chain management. Supply chain management are equally cannot exist without an efficient digital payment platform. Because now you want to buy, trust me, some currency like I heard like the Ghana currencies are not really up to our naira here. Some currencies in Africa. So you really want to trade with them, and some countries are not really used to the global international currency standard that we have. Most times we trade in dollars. So when you compare dollar to naira here in Nigeria, you can say, okay, this thing is still making sense. But however, when you compare dollar to other currencies in Africa, it's not really making sense. So you might be at loss at your own end. So you must ensure that we have the same level when it comes to digital trade. I hope I've answered your question, sir.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Yes, you have. So we still have a few questions to go. I have my own personal questions, and I also encourage us to have more. We have more people ask questions. So the next question here is, what's your opinion on the fact that Nigeria imports products as inconsequential as toothpick?
I don't want to dive into this question wholeheartedly because I would to you know the reason you said we are importing some products as inconsequential as a tooth what?
Toothpicks.
I don't want to discourage trade because there's so many so many companies or businesses into this trading of importing toothpick down to Nigeria. So we can't really say much about them. I don't want to uh, rub up their idea or maybe the business concept. But one thing that we must, and like I said during my presentation, is that we must encourage locally made goods. Despite the fact that we have this product being exported to Nigeria, we can still come up with something similar or even better than that version that is being imported. And when people see one thing that the consumers want to see
one thing that comes out because I was at a particular program sometime this year, International Consumers Right Day, Consumer Protection Right Day. It was a particular program, and one thing that consumers, the end users, want to see is satisfaction and originality. Okay, when people say that, okay, this toothpick being produced in Nigeria, particularly in Asaba, this toothpick produced in Asaba is original, it's satisfactory enough. People will will prioritize that over the one that is being imported. Though we have this I don't know what to call it. We have this thing amongst our consumers. They want to prioritize imported goods, imported this, imported that.
Yeah.
Because if we get to our various homes, you will find this imported, international, imported. No. Because when people come to visit and see that you are using locally made product, what happened now? But you get the price is not really that much. Now. You can still go for this UK, US. You get, but nonetheless, we can still encourage startups, businesses to still engage in that same product that is being exported. In the long run, they will become the kings of the market. They will become the rulers of the market. And gradually then we can start drawing away from getting those items imported. Honestly speaking, I understand where the person asking this question is coming from because it is inconsequential. How can it just like a country keep importing toothpick? You get, but at the same time, Nigeria is a signatory to different international trades and agreements, and one of these things that we must keep engaging, we must keep exporting, some of these items so we can still stay on the global map of internationally traded countries. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for helping us with that question. Also, to ask my own question, while Mr. Warmit was speaking, he pointed out that one of the phases of implementation of the AfCFTA was where he highlighted there being unified currency, but breakdown in the barriers around visa restrictions and the rest. And we've already started seeing, based off of removal of visa restriction, we started seeing countries like Kenya. Kenya is already doing a lot of work on removal of visa restriction within the ECOWAS, right? There's a lot of talk around free movements without visa within the ECOWAS, but is it feasible for the African continent now to now have a unified currency, like the way in Europe they have the euros, which is applicable, right? It's a general currency that connects European nations. Is it feasible that we have that kind of platform within Africa because I remember while one of the former Libya presidents, will I say, Gaddafi was alive, one of the thoughts patterns he was pushing for was for Africa to have a unified currency. Is that still feasible as it is with the AfCFTA?
I must confess, the visibility of having a single currency in Africa, let me just say, is about 40% successful rate as of now. And ask me why. The reason is that we have different customs, we have different beliefs, we have different cultural perspectives dominant in different African countries. African countries of today, we are about 54. And they expect that country to come. We are Africans, trust me. I hope you understand that. We are all Africans. Trust me, we would not want one custom, one country to dominate over the other. We are not like the British, we are not like the white, we are not like the Europeans. We are different in thoughts. While people are seeing the good side of something, the other people like see the bad side of it. So you cannot really encourage or say that, okay, we have achieved 70% success rate when it comes to having a single market and single currency in Africa. So that's why I think the need for single currency in Africa should just be restricted to different regions in Africa. So while ECOWAS countries can come together and let's say, okay, let's meet in Abuja today, and let's discuss on way forward on having our single currency within the ECOWAS region, which will be used by ECOWAS states and citizens. So we can just restrict the need for a single currency within regions in Africa. East Africa, come up with your own currency. Because if you really want to have a single currency like the ones in Europe, in other countries, in other continents, trust me, it's going to be a very, very, very hard task. We are still finding it hard to have a single market. We're still finding it very difficult to have a single market, something that is quite achievable. And we're not bringing on board the call for a single currency. Trust me, it's going to be a very appealing task that I'm sure heads of state in Africa might not be willing to go with it. And one thing that there's one thing to this to this side. When citizens are seeing the need for a single currency, a single market, do you think our government are seeing the need for that? How do you want them to how do you want them to boost their corruption level at at different spaces? Because now most of the time these corrupt leaders save their wealth in dollars, in euros, and we together. Do you get? So now you are not expecting them to come together and they start now saving their wealth in a single African currency. No, it's not going to be possible because they know they are interacting with the international market. So they would prefer to switch to the international market rather than having the African thing. So the success rate of this whole idea of a single currency is not something visible in the next 50 to 70 years. And I'm very sure about that. Because we are not ready as a nation here in Nigeria, we're not ready as a continent. I'm not even speaking about Nigeria alone, I'm speaking about other countries in Africa. They are not ready. See, what we are currently looking at, sometimes when I go through news, documentaries, and I just see like, okay, I think we are still enjoying this part of Africa. Do you get? We are still enjoying Nigeria now. Look at other countries. Read their stories. Look at other countries. Do you think the whole idea of a single currency will be the next plan of idea? No. It's only a country that has been able to sufficiently galvanize effort in industrialization, globalization, and development that can advocate effectively for a single currency. We are still grappling with the challenges of poverty rate, unemployment rate in Nigeria, and we want to raise the advocacy for a single currency. That would be immaturity on our own part as a country. So until when every African countries get to that developmental stage, like an advanced country, a fully developed country, then that is where we can all come up together. If it's 4 countries in Africa can come up together and say, okay, now it's time for a single currency. Actually, there can be unity. Because you are not expecting a country that is still underdeveloped, that is every now and then they are waiting for funds by the World Bank, IMF to be sent into their account. You are not telling them that they should keep advocating for an African currency. No. So until when we are independent enough in our different states, when we are independent fully, when we are developed fully, then that is where the whole idea of a single currency can be something that is worthy of deliberating about. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for that. All right, so please, does anyone still have any question they would like to ask before we round up with the session for today? Okay. In the absence of any questions, please, we would like to take pictures for today's class so that we would like to take pictures for today's class. If you can, I would like to ask that you turn on your video cameras so that we can take pictures. Yes, please. I would like to employ all of us. Please, thank you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Jeanette, if I'm not mistaken. Adeoshun. Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Thank you, Israel. Please, can we have more people turn on their videos? All right, so please just give me a moment. Okay. Thank you, Lucia. 1 more minute. Thank you. All right. We are done. We are done. Thank you so much for attending today's class. It was nice having all of us in session. We still have 2 more sessions to go for today. Thank you to Mr. Oluwatosin and to Mr. Walmart for helping us just drive the discussion for today. And I'm sure our mentees have been able to see the AfCFTA in a different light or in a new light per se, right? And they will take this knowledge and use it to further better themselves and help Africa better itself, right? So, like I said, we still have 2 more classes, one by 2 p.m. and then the next by 5 p.m., right? I would like to crave your indulgence to be in attendance for those 2 classes. There's a lot of discussion still going on, right? So much in this knowledge space that we have to share with you on, and we want that you take full advantage of that. Thank you once again, Mr. Oluwatosin. It was nice having you in this session. We've come to the end of this morning session. See you by 2 p.m. Goodbye and take care, everyone.